Today, we're talking about standing out and blending in, which, they seem like contradictory terms, and they are, but the reality is that for design, we want to both make sure that we can be in the places that we need to be and that people are familiar, but we also want to challenge and stand out. We want to make sure that there's a balance between the uniqueness of what we have, and conforming to expectations that people have.
Mm. So do you have an example of that from your own life? Because again, those seem like contrasting ideas.
My usual go-to example is talking about cereal boxes, but I'm actually gonna save that maybe for a little bit later. The example that comes to mind right now in this moment is actually it's dating. You know, when it comes to dating, you want to be like conventionally attractive. You want to have like mass appeal and not like niche appeal. But at the same time, you also need to have you want that mass appeal, but you also want like to someone to be super attracted to you and who you are. And so
Mm.
that's when you like put a little bit of your weirdness in and start to see like what resonates and like how hard do you do that? Like how hard do you go into like I love playing board games, because that's both going to draw in and alienate different people.
Mhm.
So this balance again between like uniqueness and conformity, exists in the design space. Bringing this back to cereal boxes, there's a whole like aisle of cereal in the grocery store, and all of the boxes are trying to get your attention, and they're using bright colors, they're using graphics, they're using promotions, they're using words, they're using all these different ways to try and entice you to get their cereal. And what they're not doing is challenging what like the shape of the cereal boxes should be. They're not challenging your conventions of how cereal should be presented, because if cereal doesn't come in a rectangular box, people are suspicious of it. The other form factor for cereal that's very common is a bag of cereal, and a bag of cereal makes a lot of sense, but a lot of people view like bagged cereal. It's like, I don't want bagged cereal.
Mm.
If you're dating, don't be bagged cereal, you know, or if you're trying to date, don't be bagged cereal. You want to like make sure that you're in the right place and presenting the right way. It's really tough to find that like to push that envelope enough that you're pulling in more people than you're pushing away, or like
Mm.
making sure that you're pulling in the right people and pushing away the wrong people.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Yeah. I agree. And when it comes to the dating side of things, it's kind of this. I mean, as we all know, like it's this song and dance. Like you want to put out your weirdness, but not your entire life story, right? You can't
Mhm.
put everything out. You can't put all of your baggage out online. Otherwise, who I mean, as you mentioned, like, it's some level of marketing yourself and saying, "Okay, like, here's a few things. I like board games." But you can't say, "Well, when I was 7, I was cut from my basketball team, and that caused me to go down this, like, this entire life story
Yeah.
that people are like, 'Alright, this person's actually' what you left weird and you went into crazy territory."
Yeah.
And part of that is like, well, nothing's wrong with you having that in your story and sharing that, but there's a time and place. And setting expectations with what people we've all actually society has already set those expectations for us. If you're on that blind date, there's a time and place to bring up your JV basketball story and how that reshaped your life,
Mhm.
but it might not be on that blind date. And if you spend 40 minutes talking about that, then you might have lost that person because again, it wasn't the right time or place to bring that up. And I know we were talking beforehand about how Target has so perfectly set expectations for us. And you can go into all sorts of Targets across the United States and you know exactly what you're going to get. There
Yeah.
might be variety offered within that. But because we know there's a level of familiarity, there's something where, okay, I know when I walk into a Target, I have a good idea of where milk's going to be. They might have like unique products to that specific Target, but overall, there's familiarity there. And so talk to me about the importance of, yeah, we can break down the Target example, but also talk to me about the importance of having those clear expectations defined. And maybe we could stay in the dating realm if you'd like, but And that's an important thing, right? If people know, okay, this is I know what to expect, and that makes it a better experience. And so even when it does dive into the uncomfortable or weird, if people know that might be a part of the whole thing here, well then that makes it okay. It makes it acceptable for that circumstance.
Yeah, so, the Target example is a good example. I'm gonna eschew the dating, like, metaphor, and just kinda focus on the shopping experience and build off of this Target example. So, um, when you want to present uniqueness, you need to make sure that it's at the right time and the right place. So, consider that, like, going to a Target is not generally like a one-off experience. It is not a like you go to Target once, you're like, "Wow, this was amazing," and you leave and you don't come back for years. You go to Target over and over again. You're there like, "I need to pick up milk. I need to pick up clothes. I need to pick up automotive stuff." And by understanding like where the layout is, you're able to do the transactions that you want very easily because you're like, I will pop into Target and buy a shirt, and you can pop into any Target and buy a shirt and not be stressed out about trying to find where that shirt is. Targets have generally the same layout inside, and that's on purpose so that it can build confidence with people. Now, different targets have like little like different changes that are very subtle in their layout. Like some of them have a Starbucks, some of them do not have a Starbucks. Like that's a very small change, and that's one that like you don't count on Target having an internal Starbucks for coffee. It's one of those things that like if it happens to be there, that's great. Um, there's also depending on like the area a particular target may decide to emphasize certain sections of the store. So, for instance, I live in rural Pennsylvania and I am nowhere near a Target. So, all of this discussion of Target upsets me greatly because I have to drive like 45 minutes to the nearest Target. But there are two Targets, both of them about 45 minutes away. And each of the Targets has the same layout, but there are some key differences. One of the Targets, the makeup section, um, I say this because I have a wife and a daughter. This is why I know the makeup section. Although there's nothing wrong with men wearing makeup, but the makeup section, they did a renovation last year. And like they changed the flooring in the makeup section, they changed the lighting in the makeup section to make it like not just the fierce overhead lights, but to like provide a little bit more illumination to help people make choices in the makeup aisles or in the makeup area. The presentations, instead of it being like just shelves, they have like different kinds of shelves, like made of like circles and different presentations. And so what they've done is they've said the makeup shopping experience at that Target is important to them, and they made it interesting and unique. And so like that gives that Target store a little bit of weight and emphasis. So whenever, my family, we decide that we're going to go on a road trip to Target, like, does that influence, which one we go to? I don't know. I don't shop for makeup. But maybe it does, and it tells, the story of what is important to that particular store. Balancing that need for conformity and making sure that the emphasis is in the right place, making sure that you're showing the uniqueness in the right place, as opposed to making the uniqueness a frustrating aspect. So in Columbus, Ohio, in the Germantown part of Columbus, Ohio, there is a bookstore that is an experience. It's like I think it's like 3 stories. They're like all of the like the hallways are narrow. There's books everywhere, like just like in piles and on shelves, and it's in theory organized, but it's really just kind of like a random collection. It's like if you think of like the movie style bookstore where it's like, oh, bunch of books and like you can really like find anything and spend time exploring. It's it's a great experience if you love books and you love just kind of like milling about. But if you're actually there to buy a book, like if you have a specific book in mind, it's going to be a nightmare of an experience because you're going to be like, I'm looking for this book by this author, and that bookstore is not geared for that experience. You know, Barnes and Noble is going to be better because they've got everything categorized, and they try to display things in a way that like makes exploring really, good, but it's not the same experience, and those are two different experiences. With us doing a lot of work doing design and user experience for websites, we need to make sure that we are conforming to expectations to make things usable so that a project can be successful.
People could have said the same thing about the iPhone. That
Yeah.
interface where it's like, "Oh, you're trying." I mean, and the way it was
No
developed.
buttons.
Yeah, no buttons, are you kidding me? Like, everything's this
Oh.
touch screen, like, we're having to re-educate the world on how to use it, and I think at the time, like, BlackBerry was top dog, like, no
Uh-huh.
little swivel and there was, like, the Motorola Razor and all these things that are based they cease to exist now, and if you don't have a touch screen phone, doesn't matter what brand, it's like a dinosaur for most people. And so clearly it works, but I know strategy is a big part of that. And so for yourself, when you think through, okay, we want to do something really new, cool, and creative, but we know it's going to have a little bit of a whiplash effect for some folks. There it's going to be a little jarring at least. And people are going to have to stop and ask questions. When you do that and you know you're going to have to educate your audience on this new change you're making because again it challenges norms and it's disruptive. When you have those strategy conversations, what elements come up and what key pillars are discussed when thinking through some of these disruptive things that you want to incorporate into a website, product, or service?
Yeah. So well, first off, I want to give a shout out to my Motorola Razor. I absolutely adored that phone. And even with the iPhones of today, I'm just like, I kind of miss my Razor. The battery life was amazing. That aside, let's answer your question, which is that, one of the first things that I think about is what is the longevity of the project that we're working on? Like how long is it going to exist in the world? And how much are people willing to like endure or fight to get to the information? So, like, these are kind of like two questions that I ask. Like, if what we are putting out into the world is something that is going to exist and people are going to engage with it over a long period of time, all of those thrilling, cool things that you want to do, like the bells and whistles and animations and weird typography and rocket ships, scrolling up, that gets old really fast. Like those sorts of treatments are great whenever you're experiencing something new. When you're experiencing them over and over again, they become a problem. So
Mm,
like this is something that the web industry is starting to kind of figure out is like, when you want to add animation to things, you have to realize like how does this look the like 20th time I've engaged with this animation? Is it burdensome at that point or is it still inspiring? Is it subtle enough that it just feels like a natural part of things? And so that longevity, like how many times are users going to have to engage with this is well, one of the questions. And so if you're building a property that's going to last for years, you want to make sure that um, when adding these bells and whistles that you're managing them and considering that the fact that they're going to be engaged with over and over again. The other part of it is how much are users willing to endure to get to the content, which is that's not a framing that we talk about very often, which is like, how badly do users want what you're offering? Usually we frame it in like we want to make it as easy as possible for people to come in. But there's some information that people like will fight for. And I think about like conference websites, you know, or like concert websites, where there's like, someone is on tour, they've got tickets, they can make their website as crazy as they want to. But people are going to look for their city or their nearest city and they're going to look for the dates and they're going to want to
yep.
buy tickets. And
Mhm.
you can put barriers in place that make it an experience, and reinforce the brand as part of that because it is something that they are going to engage with once. They're going to find their city, they're going to buy their tickets. They may come a second or third time if they're showing their friends or, they decide to do it later, but they're not engaging with it over
Mhm.
and over again. And so because of that, you're able to do more weird things without having to worry about like long-term effects. That's why a lot of like conference websites are so over the top, is that you have a chance to like really express yourself in ways that you're maybe not able to do in like day to day.
Mm.
And this is, you know, I'm talking about projects as if they're like one or another. And like this this is why I one of my personal like philosophies for websites is that I view websites like magazines, and I don't think that like the website as it stands today should always be the way that it is today. Like I think there's a seasonality to websites and to content. Like we do a lot of work with higher education, and in higher education, there are definitely like different semesters. Like summer is on the horizon, so like there's graduation and summer coming. There's like the students coming in for the fall. There's commencement. There's homecoming. There are all of these different like events and ways that like if you want to ride the wave, the difference between like wanting making something that's super consistent and conforms versus something that's unique is embrace that seasonality to things and create like seasonal interest. Uh, I know I've gone far afield with my notes. This is, just coming up in the conversation, but I really think that like there is a way to try and balance the two because universities, I mean, they uh, there's a promotion right now by the like Reese's like peanut butter cup folks called Reese's University. And like I have had clients literally send me that link and say that like our website looks is like modeled just like this. And, I feel like we're being mocked and can we do anything different? I'm just like, you're not being mocked. It's like this goes back to like the Target stores, you know? Like where to find shirts and milk and car batteries. Well, they don't sell car batteries. Maybe they do, but like car stuff. And so like, it's actually a strength that the Reese's University site like is mocking them. Well, not mocking them, but using them as inspiration because like that's how it flows. And you lean into that and then use your voice in ways that um, subvert those expectations or change things.
Yeah, I would say when I look at that and I see folks who are launching new campaigns and they're doing something really groundbreaking, and usually there's like some sort of landing page where, like you just mentioned, there's a fun animation. You're supposed to do it once, you never visit that again. And, that creates a cool experience. Everything outside of that being the norm. Do you have a few campaigns like that, maybe conference related or whatever, that come to mind that created a really cool one off experience?
There was, goodness, this is forever ago. There was a type foundry who, like, as part of their like promotion, their website, they actually had like it was a like 50,000 leagues under the sea kind of thing where they had all of these illustrations. And as you scrolled down the page, it was just this little person in an elevator going down, and it would like all it was this graphic that was literally staying in place and all of the images were moving around it. And it just like it was really cool to just use that scroll and like see the font that they were using in like all these different contexts as they were going 50,000 leagues under the sea, which was really cool. um I can say one for kitchens project that we did launched, and we actually hired an animator. This is the Wu Sai Institute for Yale. They very much have so the Wu Sai Institute at Yale is all about studying the human brain, and about all of the different connections between like the synapses and also like how to just get an understanding of how brains work and how they work together. And for the website, we had all of these little little colored circles for the site. And we hired an animator to animate these, like coming in and creating shapes and fading out and then creating another shape. And so the homepage experience is this big experience, kind of like basically like laying the foundation, saying, this is what the Wu Institute stands for. This is our focus. Um, and that we actually were in competition for a Webby, and we lost to Spotify Wrapped. If you got to lose, at least, I can tell people we lost to Spotify Wrapped instead of like saying that, like, oh, well, the Harvard website won the award instead. Like,
Mm.
that's no one has a connection to that. So those are a couple of examples of like projects that I think are like a little bit more out there that have done some more interesting things that I really like.
So if someone's listening to this today, they want to create something unique to stand out. And oftentimes I hear like, I need to do a complete brand redesign and rethink everything. And maybe telling people to pause on that, create something familiar but unique for yourself, helping yourself stand out, kind of like we talked about with the dating profile. Throw out a couple of things that help you stand out, maybe a couple of weird things, things you're passionate about, but overall create an ecosystem that's familiar enough that your audience isn't immediately deterred. But if they are wanting to do something really unique and create some events or whatever, create a customized experience, what are a few general things, maybe one or two general things that anyone can do? Whether it's a webinar, a course they can hand out, a resource, something that allows them to create a really fun, unique experience. If they want to do something like that, what are a couple of pieces of advice you can give someone on how to get started?
The big piece of advice that I would give is that if you have like a large web presence and you want to do something like unique and powerful, do that unique and powerful thing as a promotion or a special feature, as opposed to like the whole thing writ large. You know, make sure that we work on a lot of higher education websites, and a higher education website, like, you need to have like a certain structure in order to help communicate and allow like the teenagers who are doing research to find out what they're doing, you know but that shouldn't stop you from doing something really interesting and powerful in smaller ways. you know Cre- Creating like a one-off sort of, you know event or feature or promotion. Like, higher education's got some great examples, but thinking about like our website, the Four Kitchens website, one of the things that I'm working on is expanding what we're capable of doing within our like blog, because right now our blog is basically like just text and you can add some images, which, that's great, but I want to start adding some interactivity to
Mm,
our like the content that we're creating.
mhm.
I want to start being able to create like, ad hoc content, like create like content collections and be
Yeah,
able to present those by taking all of that and trying to like do something special with it. You get a lot of places to talk about things. Like, if you come out with like, one of the things that I'm working on is a an article about design tokens, and I want to talk about design tokens. Everyone has talked about design tokens, but not everyone has done it in the format of a comic book. So
mm,
I'm going to do a comic book page, basically talking about design tokens, and have some interactivity there. And so, see, I've taken something that is ordinary and presented it differently, and that gets more attention. And so these are things that I think that if you want to stand out more, find ways to express the things that you're doing in interesting ways that will resonate with your audience.
that's this week's episode, Designing Good Company. Randy, for the folks who are listening to this episode today and they want more information about us, they want to connect with us, they want to join and have a conversation with us, where do they go?
Well, they can go. We have a LinkedIn group for Design and Good Company where you can come and we can talk about these things. I am sure that there are people out there who have opinions who either agree with mine or people who think I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong, please come and join the group. Like this, I always find that pushback on ideas sharpens them. You can also find us at forkitchens.com, all one word. Four is spelled out, Four. You can head over there and you can find the podcast there as well. I am on a bunch of social media as Amazing Rando. So you can find me there.
That's it, everyone. That's this week's episode of Design a Good Company. Thanks for listening. You know what to do. Links in the description. Otherwise, we'll see you in a couple weeks for the next episode. Go look at our YouTube channel. Apparently, there's a LinkedIn group. Someone made it. I don't know, but I guess it's out there. So go find it and join us. Have a conversation. We'll be inviting guests. Like, join us for an actual live conversation. We want to hear from you, hear your thoughts, connect with us. Otherwise, we'll see you in a couple weeks for the next episode of Design and Good Company. See you then.